I know what you're thinking. This fall season is going to be stacked. We have Dandandan on Netflix, Bleach on Hulu, Re:Zero on Crunchyroll, and Uzumaki on HBO Max. God, that's such a disgusting reality. Point is, there's gonna be a ton of eyes on these animes, and many more! But I have a feeling that one will be overlooked, which is a shame because it's the one I'm most excited to watch. And that's Orb on the Movement of the Earth by Uoto, that is being adapted by Madhouse. Yes, the same studio that were responsible for tons of classic and beloved animes like Death Note, Hunter x Hunter, High School of the Dead, One Punch Man, and just recently Frieren. And they even got Kenichi Shimizu as the director, who directed one of my favorite animes, Parasite the Maxim, which had 64 chapters while Orb had 62, which is great, because that means we're gonna get a complete adaptation, probably 24 episodes. I would like to be proven wrong, but the lack of typical anime tropes does work against it. There's no cute anime girls with giant titties, it's not an isekai, no high school romance, no parkour. It's a historical fiction about a specific time period in Europe, about a topic that may not seem that interesting at first glance. Not a very marketable anime, especially to a broader audience. It does feature Kenjiro Suda as Noak, so that's nice, but it's got nothing going for it, so I will do the marketing for free and see if I can get some people interested in this anime. Not because I'm worried that this won't get a season 2, because Madhouse always finished what they started, especially for a short manga, but so that it can encourage more studios to adapt more unique and interesting manga stories that may not be as popular. Okay, who the fuck am I kidding? That's not gonna ever happen. So, without any spoilers, the first thing to know about this manga is that it takes place in 15th century Poland, where the Catholic Church holds a lot of influence and power over the people. They do this in many ways, but they specifically push the theory of geocentrism, where the idea the Earth is the center of the universe, and therefore every other planet, including the Sun, revolves around the Earth. The reason they stick to this theory is that it pushes a religious narrative that the Earth is at the bottom of the universe, which means that all the sins and evils of the universe and the heavens that are casted out fall into the Earth. It's a justification using the logic of gravity at the time to explain why there is so much crime and evil in this world. This narrative strikes fear to the common man, who are usually illiterate, and it reaffirms their faith that if they stay good and pious, their souls will escape the earth and return to heaven. This keeps the church in power because if you can control the knowledge, you can control the people, which is why anyone that tries to prove the theory wrong will be labeled a heretic or a witch, and the inquisitors will naturally torture and execute them. No, this is not the plot for Parkour Civilization, but I can see why you would think that because the movie did come out before this manga. After all, Parkour Civilization came out in the 80s. I don't know what people are talking about. Minecraft came out in the 80s. Everyone knows that. That being said, the theory is not perfect as there's all kinds of logical inconsistencies based on the movement of the stars. And so the manga follows the adventures of Raphael and other characters that make this realization that the Earth is moving and it's actually revolving around the sun. Basically, these guys become woke and will do whatever they can to prove this theory while avoiding the inquisitors, who will most likely silence and murder them to keep the status quo. Now you might be wondering, why would anyone bother pursuing such forbidden knowledge, especially during this time? And the manga presents all kinds of reasons, like the pursuit of knowledge, money, to keep the spirits of their friends alive, but most importantly, faith and hope. The hope that the earth isn't a place for sinners, but that we're all equal and part of God's design. Because if the world revolved around the earth, the planets orbiting us would be chaotic and unnatural, leading to a very pessimistic, cynical viewpoint on life. This is emphasized with the character Oxy, who is a guild member that makes a living fighting in duels on behalf of rich people. He's a religious man with an occupation where he can legally murder people, and he does this for a living. He kind of has to survive. He's killed so many people, even though really they didn't really do anything wrong, at least in Oxy's eyes. So obviously, that weighs on his soul. And he subscribes to the theory that Earth is at the bottom of the universe, and all the world's filth belongs there. This would justify his existence as a killer, and he prays to one day enter heaven, escaping this horrible place called Earth. He's so ashamed of his role that he can't even look at the stars, because he fears the heavens are judging him, and he fears his soul is already damned to hell. The Earth isn't perfect, so why should he be? But as he discovers and learns more about how the world really works, he'll start to appreciate that the Earth is beautiful and that life is actually worth living. Which is really nice. But this anime isn't just filled with philosophy or theology or the conflict between science and religion. There is still a lot of action in this manga for people that are action-pilled, and there's lots of torture. But nothing too gratuitous, just PG-13 enough to make you cringe. Also, the story is filled with tons of twists and turns that will keep you wanting to read more. I was really surprised with the amount of twists this manga had. There were some that were just like, no way, this character's what? things like that, which is like, I didn't expect it. I thought it would just be a manga about, you know, dumb scientists, you know, and then we learning about like how they come up with these theories. And it's cool to, and it's also cool to just to see how people in the 15th century thought how the world works. And then the very primitive ways they had to like, you know, figure out the stars. Because we take modern technology for granted, but back then they just had their eyes. They only had eyes. They just had to look at the stars, and they spent years, you know, charting the movements, only to realize, wait, this doesn't make any fucking sense. That's crazy. Anyway, now the story isn't perfect. There are some characters at the end that are a little unbelievable for the time period they are in. I also felt like they needed more chapters to be fleshed out. It's a specific character that just feels like, it feels like a modern person was dropped into this world, and it doesn't necessarily fit. I get what I get the themes of the manga. It's what they're trying to portray and what's the point of that character is. It just doesn't seem to make any sense for the time period. But it's not too bad. I still like the character. It just kind of, it took me out of her a bit. That being said, Novak is a very compelling antagonist. And honestly, with Suda's voice acting, he's gonna be freaking scary when he's on screen.
教会に背く異端思想とされる研究の資料をどこに隠しましたか?
Also, you know, it might be a period piece, but it's not necessarily historically accurate. The Catholic Church, while they actively censored and punished people for heliocentrism, they didn't go out of their way to just torture people in a brutal manner. Although not all of history is recorded, so who knows, maybe that did happen. But fortunately, the narrative events of the manga is mostly self-contained, which is good because you can tell a pretty epic story about these fictional characters and use it to push certain ideas and themes that may not be possible if we were to follow actual history. But it also makes the story a little pointless, as it doesn't affect our history until generations later when Nicholas Copernicus discovers and presents his heliocentric theory. But I think the most important thing this story has got going for it is the vibes, the passion of passing your knowledge and spirit to the next generation to uncover the truth, and sacrifices have to be made along the way. It's a very slow process, and some of us may feel powerless, but if you continue to build the bridge, eventually someone will make it across and become parkour champion. Wait, what? There's a lot that can be discussed, but I don't want to spoil anything. Just watch the anime, it's gonna be good. Like, no, seriously, if you like Parkour Civilization, this is the anime for you, like, literally. There's a lot of talks about class and shit. Anyway, I'm gonna go back to my silly rom-coms. Okay, bye!
100円ください。